It's great to be here. I would like to thank Greg for the welcome. Thanks Steve for the welcome. Greg and Connie for putting this wonderful conference on. It was a real pleasure to be invited and to speak here. And going around the country and going to conferences all the time, I know what's involved. And I know how difficult it is to fit things in to events. But this is a nationally significant conference. And it's a credit to you, and thank you to all the stall holders and supporters and sponsors for making it happen. Because, as you'll sort of see, I live in no man's land. And this is critical to all of our lands. So that's why I'm really excited about being here and being able to talk. 2018 is well and truly a line in the sand for everything each and every one of us do in this space, as I'll explain. I call my talk here The Story of Waste, Disturbance and Opportunity in a Changing Landscape. I move around the country a bit. Yesterday, I don't know if you know, but I'm ambassador for International Composting Awareness Week. A lot of people are challenged by that. I love it. It's one of my favourite ambassadorships. The other one I'm also ambassador for is the Australian, or patron for the Australian Association of Environmental Educators. And I'll explain how some of the things that have happened recently have really challenged how I feel about that and how I feel about being associated with all of you and being involved in this industry. I'm happy. I'm amazed. I'm excited, but I think above all else, I'm disturbed. I may, to some of you, look quite disturbing, dressed as a garden gnome. But there is a method to my life in no man's land, and as you have no doubt seen my wonderful comrade and partner, Dirt Girl, and Scrap Boy, who's not with us, together there is a method, and there is a connection and an educational core behind why I do this. And I remember when I went in to speak to James Valentine or Richard Glover one afternoon when Gardening Australia was coming on again. And it was the Compost Rocks, when we were launching Compost Rocks. And I walked in and he was about to throw to the news and I was coming on after the news and he said, oh, and Costa Georgiadis is here and he's dressed up as an elf or something or a gnome. And he was just doing the throw. I wasn't supposed to grab the microphone. And I just reached across and I said, I'm not dressed up as a gnome. I am a gnome. And he kind of went, we'll be back with Costa after the break. But I was serious. I don't wear this as some gag. If you were at the airport with me, I got changed in the ambulant toilet at Brisbane Airport into this because I was coming to this conference, and the conference for me began when I changed from my flight from Townsville to launch International Compost Awareness Week into the ambulant toilet to get changed. I stepped out. A few people walking behind me as I stepped out were a little alarmed and they said, who else is in there? Because I had my Captain America bag, which carries all my equipment with me. But that's it. I'm coming here. My task and my connection with this conference began at that second. And from that time, it took me probably 45 minutes to make it to the gate. As I spoke about waste, I spoke about composting, I spoke to young children, I was in selfies, I was doing videos, I was doing what we all do, live and work for, which is educating. When I say a line in the sand, we're in the midst of a 100-year drought in terms of the opportunity, what's happening in waste at this point in time. And most of the time, we don't know that we're in a 100-year drought. It's written about as history. So I hope that what I can share with you today will really raise in all of our consciousness that we are in an opportunity now and we need to act. Kind of reminded me when I was sitting there and Denise mentioned the cenotaph, and we've had the 100-year anniversary of Anzac and so on. And it reminded me of when I was at Gallipoli, and I went to is it Chunuk Bair? There's one of the points where the first landing crew got right to the top of this hill. They had the incursion. They wanted to go on. They were radioed and told, wait there. They waited there, and what followed was history. They got bunkered down. The war continued. Lives were lost. Opportunity. And I will connect what we've got going at the moment with that 100-year drought, or that point in time where the Australian and New Zealand first landers got to that point. They could have made the most of that incursion and gone right in and come behind and totally got the Turks when they were unprepared, but they didn't. And this is why I want to talk about this disturbance, because we are in disturbing times. And as I said, I'm disturbing. You ask the ABC audience what it was like when I took over Gardening Australia. They were very disturbed about my appearance, and they let me know about it. But why am I sticking on this word disturbance? Because what we're seeing at the moment is a disturbance the likes of which we may not see again in our careers or our times. And anyone who says otherwise, I'll question you. Happy to question you out the back. Not in the car park. There has been an elephant in the room. I don't know if you can see it, but there's an elephant. Sometimes props work, sometimes they don't. But anyway, it felt like a good idea when I was packing my bag a couple of days ago. I'll leave that one for you to decide. But when we talk disturbance, think of nature. When a tree falls, it clears a path. It makes an incision. Up in Townsville, after the cyclone, a huge tree fell down in one of the Indigenous reserves where they were trying to decide where to put this boardwalk. The tree fell through there, it cleared the land, they built the boardwalk, people come in and can access. The disturbance we're in is like King Lake. When I went to King Lake after the fires, the trees sit there like widowmakers. When all the seedlings pop up because of the potash in the ground, the tree then falls down after 9 months, flattens most of the small saplings, and then a few come up. This is nature dealing with disturbance. Think about the work of Joel Salatin using nature's services. Wild buffaloes moving across the prairies and the plains. They make a massive disturbance moving through the landscape, disturbing the soil, urinating, defecating, eating just the salad bar off the top, and then they move on, the grass replenishes, the seed comes up. They don't stay in one spot and eat it right to the ground. We have disturbance at the moment. It opens up the light when a tree falls down. It lets light and new ideas to come in, the seeds, the saplings that couldn't come up because of the status quo. Status quo, we all get stuck in status quo. This is how we do it, mate. This is always how we've done it. This works, we're making a buck, it's kind of all right. At the moment, we've had tremors. Think about the tremors that we've had of late. Four Corners, finally announcing to the world the biggest secret that wasn't a secret, that waste was being trucked up the road here and dumped across the border. Who didn't know about that? You know, that was the first of the disturbances. And then along came the war on waste. Some very serious, challenging disturbances there. The public, who we deal with, were being told one thing, a GPS put in a bag, taking it to landfill. Something else being taken to a factory and stored there. The public wasn't being told the truth. These disturbances started to set this new landscape of change. The war on waste dug deeper and deeper into this. It took a shift. It took someone totally outside of the industry to bring a mindset and an eye into it. And these disturbances were the tremors that have been rumbling around for the last 12 months or so, and then bang, we have the China situation. That was the elephant I was getting to. Sorry, I was a bit slow. The China syndrome came along. Now, I'll tell you that on the ground, as an environmental educator, people were coming up to me and they were angry. Think about it. How many of you felt angry when you saw these things were going on as an environmental educator, working years and years and years saying, let's do this, let's do the right thing. And a lot of people are doing the right thing, but then we're being duped on the other side. We're allowing this facade to take place. People were upset. People, you would not believe how many people were coming up to me. People like yourselves working in the industry, but the general public. Some people really reacting and saying, well, I couldn't give a fat rat's. I'm not going to put any old shit in my bin now because I don't trust anyone anymore. Trust in an industry is a really difficult thing to get back. But it needs to be exposed so that we can say, hey, let's change this. You know, you only need to look at this sort of corporate deception. I mean, think about this Banking Royal Commission. I was watching it the other day, but the language. We have a Royal Commission into misconduct in the banking industry. Excuse me, misconduct? Misconduct. I kind of think of misconduct of going down the back paddock, you know, during recess when you're only supposed to stay in the playground. You know, oh, that was poor conduct, James and Ruby. Misconduct, I'll tell you what that is. That is freaking criminal activity. And we're disguising it, you know. People, there's all this going on. People are frustrated. People are telling me. I'm seeing it everywhere I go. And they're speaking up about it. Think about what happened when Ipswich turned around the other day and said, oh, guess what? It's all too difficult. I'm going to pick up my bag and take my cricket stumps home. I'm not playing anymore. You know what happened? You know what happened. What a stupid rhetoric question. The locals just blew up. They absolutely blew up and said, not only the locals, but then the entire movement blew up and said, this is unacceptable. And immediately, what happened? The status quo was not returned. People said, this can't be the case. You cannot do this. So I would say this, do not underestimate the positivity behind the public pulse. The public pulse is alive and well behind the good work that we do. But the public pulse is also there when dodgy business bubbles to the surface. And it's all of our business because our reputation, your good reputation as educators and as an industry is on the line here in this disturbing period. Think about it across other issues. Recently, the Department of Ag put out a proposal and a request for input because they wanted to blanket fumigate all seed coming into Australia. Think about what that represents to the organic industry. Now, whether you're organic or not is not the question. It wipes out choice by one decision. They put out a call for interest and input. People got behind that. People then started a petition. The petition got 30,000 plus. I think it finished up at about 40,000 entries. people were strenuously responding to this. And you know what happened? Boom. They said, actually, we're not going to do that. We're not going to do that. The public is waiting. The public is there, ready and willing. They just need leadership. Because when they smell bodgy, they say that to bodgy. And it's great, and I'm seeing that. I'm seeing that on various issues around the country. And we need to relate to that to find the pulse that we're working with and to respect that pulse, because that pulse is what we're doing. The tools of communication and media are being used. And in the case of the seeds, a full reversal was taken. It's not about them and us. It is about the vocabulary, the words we use, how we communicate, how we educate, how we express the opportunity that sits before us. All of you here are practical, on-the-ground people working in this industry. And I think it's timely to think about the currency of waste thinking. We can shift the narrative and the dialogue, because I don't want to be 20 years down the track still saying and still educating around put the right thing in the right bin. That is dead end. We have a disturbance of massive proportions at the moment, and we can come into this gap and shift this dialogue, because the nature of rubbish has changed and its impact on nature has changed. Waste management doesn't start at the bin. We have people capable of dealing with that. We have systems, we have solutions, we have businesses doing that well. But I think and I act on the narrative of nature being brought back into the everyday for everyone. What's your connection to nature? Did anyone go for a walk or a swim this morning? Anyone? Okay, I did. I met Chris down at the beach. Where is he? Oh, there he is, over there. Yeah, we had a swim. It was beautiful. How do you connect? Nature really is the warehouse for everything that we deal with. Every resource, every item that you deal with, separate, recycle, reprocess, it's come from nature. And connecting the heart to nature builds a link to the true impact of poor resource governance. I remember going to landfill pits and watching fleets of trucks roll in. And there was a sign that said, "No children, stay in the car. Do not let your kids out of the car." And I always used to think, the biggest and most important thing we could do is let the kids go right to the edge of that pit, have a look in there and say, "What the fuck is going on here?" This is one transfer station in Rockdale. There's 7 more of them across Sydney, and they're being filled 24/7. And we say, no, put the kids in the car, gag them, don't show them this. Transparency builds connection. Oh, is someone coming through on the... Sounds like someone's coming through on the thing. Oh, 9:14. 5 minutes, okay. That's all right. Just warming up. But, you know, the reality is I could go for hours. But I'll just carry on. We're not going to change this overnight. Old systems can fade and phase out, but education is forever. We need programs that connect to the heart. If we're going to talk about nature, we've got to connect to the heart. Once we've connected to the heart and we've got a dialogue and we've got a narrative, then we can tell the stories and the reasons in the head, and then we can go to the hands and act. Where do you fit in that process? Each and every one of us. Some of us sit in two places. Some of us may be working. Some of us may be working in the heart space. Some of us may need to work more in the heart space. Some of us are working more in the head space, in the technical solving of the problems. Others are in the acting, the implementation. But all of us need to begin at the heart, because it's the heart that is going to create a baseline narrative that can engage the community and build the trust, because it's the trust that we need in these times of change. We also need to be frank. I mean, recycling is not getting rid of rubbish. It's a broad deck of cards, and we're all around the table. I know in a world where we default to gambling, I'll use the analogy of government as a croupier. I don't gamble, but anyway. A croupier has to step up, must take the lead by establishing a strategic national plan with all stakeholders, not ad hoc and repetition. We all have the answers here. I only needed to speak to 4 or 5 people last night, but everyone is here talking and sharing answers and solutions. We need to avoid replication by continuing to have conversations and gatherings like this. We need to recognise and celebrate and get out of the way of success. That's probably one of the biggest things that policy needs to do. A national strategic policy. That's what we're lacking. I don't think you can look... we can't hide from that. If we don't have a national strategic policy, then all of us are just beavering away in our corners, just getting this little opportunity to go, oh, I did this, I did that. I believe we are working in the best industry in the world, because we can go from nature to ideas, innovations, solutions, and cutting edge across the whole spectrum of what all of you do and all of us do. But that takes local, state, and federal governments to start by being the best buyers of product, because we have to do something with the stockpile. If they become the buyers, they become the leaders. And then people mirror off that. They also need to be the best recyclers and the best designers. 25 years ago in Austria, if you went to buy a case of beer, you got it in a plastic case, you paid $25 deposit on the case, you took the crate back with all the bottles in it, the bottles got reused, and the system was done by the individual. There wasn't a truck, it wasn't broken down, it wasn't commingled, it wasn't recycled. It was reused over and over, and the bottles all had wear and tear on their ridges because they were refilled probably 200 times. You know, these solutions are out there. I'm not going to go into those. You know, but that's better than commingling. We need to get beyond that. Otherwise, we stay in the status quo. We've got to prioritise markets. Government is okay at organising, collection, processing and contract management, but it's the marketing, it's the storytelling, it's the education that is critical. And in events like this, this is our opportunity to look at education as the source. It's the key. It's the key to getting people on board. Europe has invested heavily into waste management strategies and policy for a long time, and that's why they have the quality of resource recovery. And when resource recovery is quality, then we get a better outcome for all of those, rather than these second-rate products stacked in factories that Four Corners goes and tells us about. We need more investment in local infrastructure. We need the businesses. Speaking to Chris, we need the businesses, but we don't need the loopholes. Businesses work to make a profit around the guidelines that are there. We need guidelines that open up opportunity. We need to work towards a quality of recycled product and markets for the products that are there. Otherwise, this stockpile under the cloak of darkness ends up where we all know a lot of it is ending up. Let's share the successful projects and their templates. Keep a strong focus and commitment on the environment and avoid the race to the bottom. We need to put values and value on the approach. Good costs more. Just tell people. I know when I speak to people and say, would you pay more for a better system? Not even a question. They jump to their feet and say, yes, I'll do it. They're with us. The people are with us. But think about it like this. The key part of education, you can have an 8-star home, but if you have a 2-star user, you only have a 2-star home. We've got to integrate across multiple industries and sectors, creating sustainable demand. Like I say, there's not one solution, and some of the solutions will not be the best. Okay? Look at that, down to the last page. Some of the solutions won't be the best in the short term, but we have to move through this and make the most of this chasm. Make the most of this disturbance. We've got to focus on quality and, above all else, accountability. As we'll be hearing from Andrea, circular economy is a shift in how we behave and a fundamental change in how we think. Return systems, refillable containers, all of that stuff I'm sure she's going to talk about. But strong brands and strong industries need to be strong and consistent in their message. Strong and consistent in their message. An education and a national plan that is a working guide for all of us to get these quality outcomes is what we need to lobby for and what we need to just do as an industry. This is a rare time and it is a rare moment in time to have such a disturbance come our way. People are talking waste, people are interested in the future and what we're going to do. So what is going to be the result of this conference? When we look back in 2 years' time or 3 years' time, there's a gap there. Get in there with the shoring, prop it up and move. Oops. Move through. We have to move through. We're not going to stop there and wait for a signal to say, hang on, troops are coming. We are the ones. This is the 100-year flood. This is the rarest opportunity in our careers to drive change in a climate of change where it's going to be accepted. Sign petitions. I know Dirk Girl's got a petition for all of these things. Sign those things. Step up. Talk about it. Here's our chance. I'm excited. I'm disturbing. And this disturbance is our big opportunity. Thank you.